Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Addicted to Gear. Thank you for joining me. Just trying to get the sound, and I'm gonna play a little more quiet today because I think last time was a little too loud. Hard to get the sound proper when you're doing the stream here. But is that okay? Anyways, I'll try not to blow out anybody's eardrums today. How's it going, everybody? I hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you for joining me today. Another Sunday show. This is number 76. Time's passing, guys. We're already what? We're at the end of the month now. Beginning of the next month. What am I saying? August is already here. We're going to be in the fall soon. I don't know about you, but it's been a blur for me. Everything's just going by so fast. It's hard to get time to do anything. But thank you for joining me today. Is it just me, or is the quality of the video a bit better today? I don't know why that is. Same camera. I'm doing everything pretty much the same, but things change a little bit from time to time. I don't know why. So welcome to everyone who's here this morning bright and early. I see that there's a lot of people that are in Europe and other parts of the world where it's actually nighttime. So I appreciate you guys trying to stay awake to tune in for the show. If the volume on the mic is too low, let me know. I'll try and put it a little bit louder. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Something like that. All right. Yeah, I can't believe it's August already, but hopefully everybody's doing really well and everybody's in good shape and everybody's playing again, playing live again, hopefully. So I just wanted to say welcome to everybody that's here. If you're new, just a little recap. Basically what we're doing here is we're just having a live stream that we normally put on every Sunday 10 a.m. trying to stay on that regular schedule. And there's a lot of people that are regulars here, but obviously newcomers are welcome. If you're addicted to gear like we are, and you're into guitars, amps, pedals, music in general, this is a good place to join. And basically an opportunity for all of us to network and ask questions. And you know, I try and answer the questions, but the questions are not necessarily just going to be geared to me, because other people obviously have knowledge and answers as well. So we encourage everybody to share information as much as possible. And of course, if you're not familiar with my channel, I've been doing this for quite a few years now. Started probably more than 10 years ago, unofficially, with just some videos out there, and slowly built it into a channel. And I'm happy to say that we're getting some very regular viewers, and things are going really well. So if you guys are interested in supporting the channel, obviously the best thing you can do is give me some thumbs up. At the same time, if you haven't already subscribed, consider subscribing to the channel. We definitely want to grow our viewership. And of course, if you want to buy some swag, there's some interesting Addicted to Gear swag underneath all of my videos. You're welcome to grab any of those if you wish. And of course, if you have any questions, put them up and we'll get to them right away. If you want to support the channel through a super chat, that's appreciated as well. Not necessary, but obviously it helps the channel continue, and it is appreciated. So that's it. So let's say hi to the guys that are already here, and just want to make sure everyone's doing well. So Kushman, good morning. Thanks, Kushman. This guitar, actually, I'm holding a guitar. I might as well introduce the guitar. This is the Harley Benton single cut that I reviewed in my last video. P90 pickups. These are Roswell P90 pickups. The guitar overall is really nice. I did a full review on this guitar, so if you haven't already seen that one, you might just want to click on that link. It's in my channel. Playing samples are up as well for this guitar. And overall, it's a great, I like playing this guitar a lot. I love P90s. Obviously, this patch I'm playing through has a lot of gain. If you lower the volume, you can make it clean up. I like the single cut a lot because it's a very simple guitar. The fact that this one has 2 volumes and 2 tones make it more versatile. I know they have one that is all pretty much the same except it has one P90 pickup. I went with the 2 pickup configuration specifically because I like to blend my sounds, and this one allows me to do that. Honestly, it's a really good compromise if somebody doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a Gibson Junior, which are pretty expensive. I feel that this guitar plays really well. It's built nicely, and it basically scratches my itch. Saved me some money, actually, because eventually I did want to get something that was similar to a Blues Junior. This one does it. There are some shortcomings to this guitar. Not a lot, but I did mention it in my video. So if you're considering getting one, then check it out first. The bad news is that these guitars are pretty much sold out right now, I think. I mentioned in my video if you wanted to get one, you should get it quick. I didn't realize how quick, but I think they're pretty much sold out now. So you probably have to wait for the next batch, but that's what it is. So Jack Collins, good morning. Charles, good morning. Cushman says he picked up a Bernie Les Paul Custom. That's a really nice guitar. The Bernies are quite popular. For those of you who don't know, the Bernies are sort of the lawsuit versions of the Les Paul that they were making overseas, and they're quite collectible now. A lot of people are trying to find them and add those to their collection because they play really well, and most of them are built really nicely. So it's sort of like a great way to get a great quality Les Paul style guitar at a lower price point. Although I don't know if the pricing on those are still are going up, because it seems like a lot of these Japanese guitars now, the prices are slowly going up on those, and slow but steady. And same for my Tokai. I keep a close eye on the used market for any Tokais that pop up, but I haven't really found any that are relatively inexpensive. They're getting it more and more expensive. So congratulations on that guitar. I'm sure you're gonna really like it. Do you actually have a real Gibson? Or is this the sort of compromise between a full-blown Gibson and this guitar? So Jack's here, Cushman, as I mentioned, and Cushman also says that the guitar is black with silver hardware. That's pretty nice. Black is classic. Can't go wrong with black. Bruce is here. Good morning. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to start asking those questions as soon as you can, because we're going to try and not go 2.5 hours like we did last time. So anything that you want to ask, just go ahead and ask, and I'll jump around in the chat. So if I missed your chat, just ask again and I'll get to it. So let's see here. By the way, I mentioned at the beginning, while you guys were waiting, that I put up a poll, and if it's in the community section, guys. So if you guys don't know where it is, if you just go into the Addicted to Gear community section, that's where the polls are. You should get notified whenever I post a poll if you've enabled the notifications. If not, you might not get those. The question of the day was whether or not you use this knob, the tone knob, this one right here. A lot of people don't. I'm one of them. I don't really use the tone knob all that much, but the poll question was basically, do you use it? And if you do you use it all the time? Do you use it occasionally or not at all? And I thought I'd ask that question because I have a couple of guitars like the Kramers that I showed the Kramer Berettas that I did reviews on. And those guitars don't have any tone knob. They just have a volume knob, and that's it. And I built another EVH tribute that you saw on my thumbnail that also only has a volume knob, and the striped EVH that I built as well only has a volume knob. And to be honest with you, I don't really miss the tone knob at all. I think I only use the tone knob um, if there's something wrong. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm playing through an amp that is very harsh or maybe too bright, and I can't control it on my amplifier for whatever reason, or if I'm playing live and I don't want to walk over to the amp to adjust, then I'll use the tone knob. But usually I don't really use it all that much, so I don't really personally I don't miss it, and I feel that when you're playing a guitar and you're going straight pipe, which means the circuit is out of, the actual tone controls are out of the circuit, it actually sounds better to me, because I do have one of my Les Pauls has the ability to pull out one of the knobs to bypass all of the tone circuit and go straight to the output, and that when I enable that, that guitar sounds the best that way. So, I think that Eddie was kind of onto something when he actually, or maybe he just stumbled on it. Maybe it possibly wasn't planned, but anyways, his guitar having only a volume probably sounded the best that way. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. So I'll just jump down to the most recent comments here since we're talking about this now and see what you guys think. So Alan says, I use a tone knob to get a balanced sound. Most pickups, then too bright for me. Pickups, I think you mean pickups that are too bright. Yeah. And Paul says, I don't use the volume or tone knobs. I do everything from the pedals. Yeah, so I think that's another thing is if you're using pedals and that's another layer in your tone, obviously then you're kind of you got to balance the what's happening at the amplifier, what's happening at the pedals, and what's happening at the guitar. I tend to, whenever I'm trying to get a good sound, I tend to focus primarily on the amp first. So I try and dial in the proper sound for the guitar on the amplifier, and I just try and get a sound that works clean without any drive, just basically a good solid clean sound balanced out with the guitar. So if I'm using a Strat and perhaps the pickups are a little bit more bright, so I'll compensate for the brightness, or if it's a Telecaster, for example, I'll compensate at the amplifier, and then I'll use my pedals almost like seasoning at the end, just to kind of enhance what's already happening at the guitar and amplifier. Because I feel that if you try and like dial in the tone completely from your pedals, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So I kind of like to go almost like guitar directly into the amplifier, get a good solid sound there, and then maybe put the pedals into the circuit and just tweak what I'm already getting. And I use the pedals sparingly. So if if I have a nice clean sound and I want to get a little bit more dirt, then I'll put in the dirt pedal, but I'll kind of try and mimic what's already happening with the clean sound and then just dial in a little bit of dirt. So I don't change the overall sound. That works. That seems to work for me. Yeah, I've heard about that, John. Eddie wasn't a master in terms of electronics, so when he tried to wire up his guitar, apparently he didn't have an easy time, and that's part of the reason why his early Frankenstrat had the tone switch stuffed into the middle pickup cavity, because he put it in there because I guess he didn't know how to wire it up going straight to the output, so he kind of kept the tone switch, but he didn't really use it. So he kept it to get it to work, but he just stuffed it in out of the way because he didn't really want to use it. So it's interesting how all of that came about. Lempu says, I bought Goto locking tuners and a Floyd Rose original 1000 series for a total of $100 from a guitar factory in Indonesia. Hope it arrives soon. I mean, those are great, great options. The Goto stuff is really good. The Floyd, obviously, if you can, the better quality Floyd you can get, the better quality results you will get. I learned that also the hard way. My only concern whenever I buy anything from Indonesia or China that says, Goto or Floyd on them, I always worry that they're knockoffs, because whenever you get something for really, really cheap, getting a set of locking tuners and a Floyd Rose for $100, to me that raises a red flag. So just be careful that they're actually, especially the Floyd, is actually a real one, because there's a lot of fakes flowing around or copies that look like they're real, but they're not, and the quality is definitely not the same. Rico says that he has a white EVH Wolfgang and want to make it a black and white stripe. Can you give your advice on how to best do this? Can I paint black stripes, then clear coat and wet sand? Sure, I can give you some advice. I've done it. I've done paint jobs quite a few times. I can tell you what not to do. So basically, you have the guitar is already white, which is great. So that's already sort of a base to start with. The thing is, what a lot of people do, if the guitar is white and it's clear coated, that means your guitar is glossy. If it's glossy, you really need to prime the guitar before you paint it. I know a lot of people are tempted just to paint over the white, but what ends up happening if the guitar is primed is that the new coats of paint are not going to stick that well, because the actual clear coat is really, really glossy. So there's a couple of ways you can go about it. You either have to prime the guitar just with regular primer, but you have to make sure before you do anything that whatever paints you use are compatible with the paint that is already on your guitar. Typically, a lot of these guitars use poly nowadays, so if you stick poly and the colors that you add to it are poly as well, you shouldn't have an issue. If you're trying to mix poly and nitrocellulose lacquer or any kind of lacquer, it could react, and you don't want to do that, because then you're going to have to resand it and start all over again. So my recommendation is either you spray it with primer and make sure it's compatible primer, and then add the white, and then tape it up, and then spray the black, and you can make your layers that way. When you spray the black, the key is to use proper tape, because there's a lot of tape that the paint will actually stick to. So when you peel it off, it'll actually flake away, and that doesn't look nice. So you have to use good quality painter's tape, and you can do a couple of tests to see which one peels off nicely. When you put the tape down, make sure there's no gaps. Otherwise, you're going to get bleeding underneath the tape, which is not going to look very good. And so you could, just press it down with a credit card or something. Make sure all of the tape is really tightly adhered to the body. And when you paint the black, you can you got to peel off the paint the tape really rather quickly. You don't want to leave it on there for too long, because then when you do peel it off, it actually has more of a chance to actually flake off the other paint. So I would say, like, after a day or two, you can peel it off, and then you couldn't. I mean, you could wet sand it, but I wouldn't even wet sand it. I just do the clear on top of the stripes. Do a few coats. I would say as many as you can. Like one can of clear is not going to be enough. I would say at least try and go at least 3 cans of clear. And then once all of the clear is dried properly, in other words, let it dry for at least, if it's poly, I'd say about a week or so, and then you can wet sand it. So the process is long, but if you do it properly, it'll come out really nice. So I hope that helps. I hope that clarifies it a little bit. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know, and I'll be happy to answer those questions as well. So, speaking of the Floyd and whatnot, I think I mentioned in the last live stream that I also upgraded the Floyd that I had originally on my Guitar Kit World Kramer that I built, the striped one. I think I showed it last week. So it makes a huge difference whenever you put a good quality Floyd in a guitar. This is a German Floyd. It's actually a Schaller made in Germany, and it's a huge difference. I mean, this not only in the sound, because the sound does definitely resonate better. It has a lot more highs, and the low E string doesn't sound like a rubber band like you sometimes get on cheaper quality bridges. You'll notice that it actually is very punchy. It sounds great. It's definitely worth the money to upgrade to a good quality Floyd is if you have any guitar that has a Floyd. I think even when I bought my Charvel, even the one that came with the Charvel was not an original Floyd. It was just their version, and it wasn't that great. And that's part of the reason why I got rid of that guitar. But thinking back, if I would have possibly just upgraded the Floyd on that guitar, I probably would still have the guitar because it was a really nice guitar and a really nice neck on it. Um, so that's my advice for anyone that has a Floyd. My love relationship with Floyds are on and off because they are definitely harder to maintain in terms of setup. You really have to be able to do a good setup on your guitar to be able to have the Floyd floating properly and working properly. And if you're not comfortable working on your guitars and you don't understand the nuances of getting the Floyd to be in balance properly, you're going to have issues. Uh, Now, finally, after so many years of playing guitar and working on guitars, I really understand how to get it to work. And the final piece of the puzzle is really getting a good quality Floyd Rose system. And I tried to skimp in the past. I always used to fool myself and I would say, oh, a Floyd's a Floyd. They're all the same. Totally wrong. They're not all the same at all. They're really, really, there's a huge difference there. And so I'm happy to say that on that guitar, it's definitely working better for me. And I kind of alleviated some of my Floyd anxiety because at a certain point, I swore that I wouldn't use any more guitars that have Floyds on them just because of the frustration and stuff. But if you get a good one and you set it up properly, that kind of goes away. You kind of forget about that. So if you haven't tried one, a good one, I would definitely recommend trying one. Let's see what other comments we got here. And I'll continue to say hi to people along the way. But if I jumped over you because I'm jumping over comments in the chat here, forgive me. But everyone is welcome. So let's see. Fat Philosopher is here. Um, who else is here? Al, do you think the prices are ever going to go down? That's an excellent question. I don't think so. Doesn't seem to be the trend unless something crazy happens. It seems like guitar manufacturers are really reaping the benefits of the COVID thing. I think a lot of people, because they were bored and locked in their homes, probably went back to playing guitar or maybe took up playing guitar because apparently the sales of guitars specifically have been really great. Record sales for some companies, which is great because we want to encourage the companies to stay in business. The last thing we want to do is see the businesses going out of the companies going out of business. So that's really good. The downside of that is that the prices are indeed continuing to go up. It's getting really crazy. And so if you're planning on buying a guitar, you really have the option of trying to get one of the big names and trying to save your pennies to be able to get one at full price. Obviously, you can shop used, which I tend to do just because I don't want to pay full price for anything. I'm cheap. Okay, not cheap, frugal. So I'll try and get whatever I want, wherever I need on the used market and save myself quite a bit there. And make the other guy pay the additional 40% that goes out the window as soon as you walk out the store with the instrument, right? But yeah, the prices, even on the used market, seem to be quite high nowadays. I don't know what's going on, but the good news is if you've already established your guitar collection and you have quite a few in your collection right now, and maybe are considering selling a few of them, it's a good time to do it because the prices are going up, and so you can probably recoup most of the initial costs that you put down on your guitar that way. So um, whatever. I mean, it's part of life. I think in general everything's going up in terms of cost. So it's one of the things we're all trying to adapt to and work towards getting used to, I guess. So Christian is here. Hi, Christian. And the Blues is here. Hey, Shane, how's it going, buddy? Hope everything's doing or going better there in your neck of the woods with the COVID situation and all of that. Hopefully that's coming to an end. Um, Bob Bitchin is here. Good morning. And the gas crowd. Um, let's see here. It took me years to probably learn how to set up a Floyd Rose. Now it's no biggie. Exactly, Slushy. That's it. That's what I mentioned before. One of the things that I was rather disappointed with the striped EVH guitar is that I purchased the kit, the body and the neck from Guitar Kit World, and overall the kit is really good. Like the neck is good. I'm happy with the neck. The body, the quality of the body is really good. But when I put in when I upgraded the Floyd on that guitar, I noticed that I was having issues with intonation because no matter how far back I would put the saddles, it still wouldn't intonate properly. So I kind of had maxed out the play in the bridge on a few strings, and it wouldn't intonate properly. And I realized after, of course, the guitar's painted and all of that and put together, that the holes for the bridge are not in the right place. And this is common with bodies and stuff that are being built overseas. There's always variations, and unfortunately, these are the sad surprises that you get sometimes when you're building your own guitars. So it's no biggie. I'm able to fix it. It's just a pain, a real pain, because especially when the guitar is fully painted and stuff, what you need to do obviously now is like I need to actually pull back the location of the bridge studs. I would say a little bit less than a quarter of an inch. So they should actually be a little bit further back. And they're not. So now I have to kind of take everything apart, fill in the holes that are already there for the bridge that is there now, and drill up new holes, and then patch the paint job. It's doable. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure I'll be able to do it, and I'll be able to hide the repair. Pretty confident in that. It's just again a real pain. But I'm a real stickler, and I really cannot stand when a guitar is not intonated or can't be intonated properly. Um, and for those of you who don't really understand the whole purpose of intonation, it is obviously to be able to tune up your guitar and say you're plucking the E string here. You're getting a good solid E, and it's not sharp or flat. And then you hit the 12th fret, and it's still a good solid E, not sharp or flat. And if you're playing the 12th fret and all of a sudden your E now is sharp, then you have to adjust the intonation. If it's flat, same thing. So it's just a real pain when you're playing a note, and you can test this on most of your guitars. If you tune up your guitar and you just, for example, hit the E string and then fret the A string, when you're looking at your tuner, is the A properly tuned? If your E is tuned properly, your A should also be tuned properly, and your E at the 12th fret should also be tuned properly. And if it's not, it means you got some work to do with the intonation on your saddles, and hopefully they're not maxed out, because if they're maxed out, then you have the same problem I have. Um, but these are all things that can be fixed. Um, let's see here, some other questions. With what do you fill in the holes? Okay, so Blue Matrix is asking. So typically what I do is I use dowels. I make sure I can get some dowels, or I make my own dowels that are exactly the same size as the holes that were drilled in the guitar previously. Use regular wood glue, put them in. I kind of countersink the dowels a little bit, like maybe about a millimeter, so that they're just below the surface slightly. And then I use some Bondo to cover it up so that I get a really flush finish. Because if you put the dowel in your guitar and you make it flush with the top, just with glue, you will often see a little ring around where the dowel is through the paint, which is sometimes not very nice. And then once that's done, you just sand it down slightly just to make sure it's perfectly level with your body, and then just repair the finish. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be doing in the next little while as another project. So I'm happy to say that recently I also started playing with the band again. I mentioned in my last live stream that I was looking forward to the session that we were going to be having. We had that a week ago, and it's good and bad because we're definitely rusty. I know I was, um, but it was a pleasure playing again, and it was just so much fun playing with the guys again, and just felt so good to finally be able to play. And I brought my Marshall Studio Plexi amp to the session, which I don't usually do, but it's that amp up there. And I wanted to try it in a live mix and see how it fit in the mix. And I tried it with a couple of different cabinets that they had there. Some were better than others in terms of the cabinets that they had. So at first I wasn't really happy with the sound. And it's funny because when I play the amp here in my little studio, I normally go into the high channel. So if you guys are familiar with a Marshall, it usually has four inputs. There's low and high inputs. So I usually bridge the low and the high so I can mix the tone between them with the two knobs, the two volume knobs that they have. And for here, for the home use, going into the high channel was fine. But in a live situation, probably because I was playing at a much higher volume, the high was just too piercing. It wasn't working in a live situation, so I switched down to the low input, and then it sounded great. Um, so I was happy to have the that amplifier backing me up. I took that amp and I played with the Gibson 335, which again I don't normally do in a live situation. I usually don't take that guitar. I usually end up taking Telecasters most often, one of my Telecasters, but this time I actually used the 335. I thought it was gonna feed back like a Banshee, but it didn't. I was actually quite surprised because we normally play pretty loud. And that's one of the issues with the semi-hollow body guitars, that they tend to feed back. But in this particular case, it didn't, and it sounded really, really nice. I don't think you can beat a 335. The only thing that I need to tweak is that I didn't have I had two different dirt pedals on my board at the time. I had the Mojo Hand Rook, Mojo Hand Effects Rook, which is a great dirt pedal in my opinion, because it definitely maintains the punchy sound of your guitar. It doesn't become muddy. um, Sounds really nice, sounds like a driven amp. So I used that one, and I left my Friedman Dirty Shirley Overdrive on the board as well, because I wanted to try it. And the Mojo Hand worked better than the Friedman. The Friedman gave me too much of a modern drive sound, which I don't really need. So I'm keeping the Mojo Hand Rook on my board, but I think I'm going to also experiment with the Plimsoll. I like the Plimsoll a lot. When I compare the Plimsoll with the Mojo Hand Rook, definitely the Rook has a nicer attack. The Plimsoll tends to get a little bit more mushy and a little bit, not muddy, but definitely not as not as immediate as the Mojohan Rook. So, uh, anyways, I'm gonna determine what I need because I really only want to have one on the board. Okay, what else? What other questions we got here? Rico's asking me, do I need to scuff up factory clear coat before I prime? It would be best, Rico. It would be best if you can, because the primer also needs something to hold on to, right? I mean, the goal of the primer, or the objective of using a primer, the primer is creating a good surface for adhesion. And so if your clear coat is shiny, it really is not gonna it's not gonna adhere properly. And the last thing you want is to have your paint peeling off. So just lightly scuff it. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to take it down to bare wood. But I would take probably, I don't know, 400 grit sandpaper, 350, 400, and just scuff it till it's not shiny anymore, till it's dull. And then you can apply the clear coat. Does that make sense? So Joe's here. Joe370Z made it. Greetings from San Francisco. Nice to have you here, Joe. Good to see you, buddy. Paul says the top quart stuff is literally custom shop quality. I have a silver tone they made for about 5 years. Never needs a setup, and the neck Ibanez thin. Cord has been in business for so long, Paul, that I'm not surprised they're still coming out with some very good stuff. I think they also make some guitars for a lot of other brands as well. The private label for a lot of brands. I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of super thin necks, like the wizard necks on the Ibanez guitars. I'm not a fan. Um, but I know a lot of people do like them. BC Rich 581 says intonation is why I love fretless bass. Slide around to fix all intonation issues. Yeah, that's one way of fixing them. Slushy says I purchased a guitar kit from Stumac over the lockdown. It was the premium Wilkinson design 60s Stratocaster, excellent quality. So did you put that together already, Slushy, or is that still in the works? I'm just gonna take a sip of water here, guys, because too much blah blah is making my mouth dry. I think a lot of people ended up working on their guitars over the lockdown. I know I did. As a matter of fact, um, it dawned on me just recently that I had done some setup videos in the past. They weren't great, but I just wanted to show people how to do certain basic setup things on their guitar. And I said, I think I'm going to bring that back. I think I'm going to bring back the little idea of possibly like recording more stuff while I'm working on guitars. Because to be honest with you guys, I mean, the reviews I do here, I probably spend twice or three times more time working on my guitars than actually what I'm showing you here in terms of reviews. So I figured why not share some of that knowledge and show you guys what I do behind the scenes. So I probably will call that segment my messy workbench, because my workbench is completely messy at this point. As a matter of fact, I shot something recently that I'm going to probably be editing and I'll probably put online either today or tomorrow, where I show how to properly um, shield your guitar. There's a lot of people that don't do this, haven't ever done this, and don't even know if their guitars are shielded or not. Whenever I put together a guitar project, I always shield my guitars as much as I can. But there's a lot of people that have done some shielding and think that they've done it properly, but it's actually not even working. And in this video, I'm showing you how to do it, showing you the proper way of doing it. And I think a lot of you might be able to benefit from this information. If you don't want to shield your guitars, at least you know what to look for to see whether or not your guitar is shielded. And if you bring it to somebody, you can verify that it's been done properly. Tony, they started in Japan, then moved to Korea, then moved to Indonesia. The parent company was originally called Baldwin Organs. Yeah, I seem to remember that, Paul. I seem to remember reading that about Court at some point. That's some other useless piece of information that's been floating around my brain for the last so many years. Hey, Randy, how's it going, buddy? Uh, One thing I forgot to mention, guys, we lost Dusty Hill this last week, and that's pretty sad. If you guys don't know who Dusty Hill is, it's Joseph Michael, and Joseph was the bass player in ZZ Top. Um, it's sad. I don't know what he passed away of. I think they only announced that he passed away in his sleep, so maybe a heart attack or something. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't well. Um, but it's a shame because I like ZZ Top. I like Billy Gibbons. I like the music that they put out, especially the early stuff. And it's a shame to lose somebody that has been an integral part of the band since 1969. I mean, I think he joined the band in '69, which is the year I was born. So that's over 50 years ago. And to be able to be not only playing music for 50 years, but in the same band for 50 years, that's crazy. There's not that many bands that can say that they've done that without necessarily changing out some members. And although Dusty wasn't the most flamboyant bass player there ever was, he did definitely take care of that bottom end within the trio. And it was more a question of style than anything because, he complemented Billy Gibbons very, very well. They worked together very well as a team. And, all of the little nuances while they were playing, synchronized steps and, matching finishes on their guitar and all that kind of stuff really was part of the entertainment factor of ZZ Top. So I'm wondering what's going to happen now. I don't know if ZZ Top is going to call it quits. Are they going to stop? Or are they just going to replace Dusty and continue? Uh, I think he was about 75 years old, if I'm not mistaken, or 72 years old. So it's a real shame that we're losing some of these artists, and it's going to be a real downer when other big names that we all know and love disappear, like Eddie Van Halen recently as well. So uh, rest in peace, Dusty. I hope you're enjoying that sea shuffle in the sky, and we'll see what happens. But definitely, ZZ Top can be replaced. I mean, ZZ Top is ZZ Top, There's a lot of imitators, but they're the original. Um, so let's see what other questions are here. John says Dusty left the tour to go home to deal with pain from a hip injury. Not sure if it was related to his death. Who knows? Sometimes it could be a blood clot, it could be a stroke, it could be medication, it could be so many things. But yeah, it's really sad. Little band from Texas. They made a career out of playing three chords. It's not the chords you play, it's how you play them, I guess, right? Yeah, Eliminator was an excellent album from ZZ Top. I remember as a teenager, when they came out with Legs and Sharp Dressed Man and Tush and all these great songs, and of course the videos where they had the beautiful hot rod and the gorgeous ladies as well. It just worked so well together, and it's funny because at that time there was a lot of new type of music coming out, bands like U2, a lot of alternative bands and all that kind of stuff. And here these middle-aged guys or past middle-aged guys are still rocking the blues and made it fun. So hats off to ZZ Top as well. John says Billy said they will continue as per Dusty's instructions. Oh, cool. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm glad that they're still putting out music. But I gotta be honest, I mean, the music that they've put out recently hasn't been as interesting, at least to me. But you never know. They probably still have a couple of hits in them. We'll see what happens. Rico says it's interesting how Billy released a solo album recently. Wonder if Dusty was on the decline for a while. Yeah, maybe he was mending at the time. Maybe he already had some health issues, and Billy figured he'd release a solo album to give him some time, to sort of fill in the gap. But I listened to that album, the one that Billy released on his own. I mean, there's always really great licks. Billy is a master with the licks, but it didn't really resonate with me as much for whatever reason. But I'm still glad they're putting out music. Richard says apparently Mr. Dressup would open his tickle trunk and pull out all kinds of costumes, prop, and imaginative art activities. What are we talking about here, guys? Are we talking about my reference to the tickle trunk? Is that it? Yeah, it's a Canadian thing. Jack says the bass tech is taking over for Dusty Hill, the one that's been to the one that's been to take for over 20 something years. So his bass tech is taking over for Dusty Hill. Really? Wow. Interesting. It's his moment to shine if that's the case. Pretty cool. It's amazing how things evolve. I didn't hear that about the bass tech, so thanks for that, guys. I wasn't aware. Interesting. Well, that's cool. I don't know who this bass tech is, but I guess it's his time to hit the big time. Huh. That's basically one for Dusty. Hey Ed, nice to see you here, buddy. It says the longtime guitar tech was filling in for Dusty. There you go. So I guess a lot of you are even more aware of what's going on than I am. Fat Philosopher says you can't have beautiful women in your videos anymore. They all need crew cuts. They're all on need crew cuts and on steroids. Yeah, I think the politically correct times that we're in right now would definitely mean that there's a lot of stuff that was done in the past that could not be done today, and it's an end of an era, good or bad. But yeah, I think a lot of those videos would be labeled sexist today. Seth says, yeah, my dad gave me the cassette. Cool dad, huh? Missed that dude. Still play his Strat all the time. Oh man, that's cool. That's really nice. If your dad's handing down the torch of music information like that, um, I should do the same for my kids. I've sadly not been I haven't been sort of fostering the music side of things with my kids because they all have their own little specific tastes in music. Besides my son, who I think tends to be a little bit more to enjoy a little bit more of the classic music. My daughters, I don't think really like classic music all that much, except for my older one. I think she's, sometimes I catch her listening to some classic, some classic rock as well, but not all the time. The taste in music these days for the younger kids is really much different. I'm happy I grew up in a generation where we weren't listening to sequenced music as much as they are now. What I like to call real music. Ed says Billy has a YouTube channel, Billy F. Gibbons. Yeah, I think I subscribe to that channel. So Elmwood Francis is Billy's guitar tech. His resume is very impressive. Okay, so it's Elmwood who's playing bass, not because Elmwood was Billy's guitar tech. So I understood it was Dusty's guitar tech taking over, Dusty's bass tech, unless Elmwood took care of both Billy's bass and Dusty's bass and Billy's guitar. But I know who Elmwood is because I've watched a lot of rig rundowns with him, and I've seen him sort of talking about the gear and all that kind of stuff. So I know who Elmwood is right now. That's good for him. I'm glad. I guess he's gonna have to grow a beard or something to fit in. BC Rich says, so I'm guessing that Mr. Tickle is currently in prison on a variety of charges. Okay, so his name wasn't Mr. Tickle, it was Mr. Dress Up. And he had a tickle trunk. But yeah, that's another thing that probably, if that show was on today, they probably wouldn't have called it the tickle trunk. That's for sure. But whatever. The ZZ Top documentary, little old band from Texas, is great. Yeah, I watched that one, John. I watched that quite a while ago, actually, and yeah, it's amazing when you think of it. They actually played with so many great artists. They had an opportunity to play with Hendrix and a bunch of other people that are really like guitar heroes of mine, anyways. And that's just how long they've been around, you know. Dusty told Billy, give uh, Elmwood the bottom end and let him take it to the top. Really? I wonder. I mean, is that actual fact or is that something we're making up here? Because it seemed like he died in his sleep, so I don't know if he would actually be able to give any instructions ahead of time unless they had this discussion. Which I don't see why they would be talking about this. I don't think his death came. I think his death came as a surprise. So I don't know if. Anyways, I guess we'll get the story eventually from Elmwood. Okay, what else? We have a question here as well. What is your opinion on the Gibson Les Paul Standard 1959 60th anniversary? I like the stuff that I like the standards. I like them. I like playing them. I like the way they feel. I like the way they sound. I just don't like the pricing on them. Um, you know what I mean? The any opportunity that a company has to put a label on a guitar like a 50th anniversary, a 60th anniversary, usually means it's a limited run, which means they're going to charge you more for it. The thing that I don't like about, and this is not just Gibson, it's most guitar companies in general these days, is that they all are taking any opportunity they can to kind of make it sound like you're getting something special or uber special with their guitars, and it's just a different incarnation of the guitar again, but they're trying to, make it more desirable by making it a limited run, charging more for it. And at the end of the day, I think people are getting hoodwinked with marketing um, and end up paying a bit too much for what the guitar actually is. Um, but that's up to you guys to decide. I mean, if you guys really like, the reissue stuff and the historics and the R versions of the Gibsons and all these crazy custom shop things that they're putting out. I mean, it's cool, but the pricing on it is just through the roof. It doesn't make sense to me. That's my opinion. Lempu says you can pass down your guitars to us if your bloodline don't want it. I didn't say anything about my guitars. I'm saying music. I'm saying just the passing on the torch in terms of the knowledge and the influences that I've appreciated That's a little bit more difficult. But as far as the guitars go, I don't know if they're not going to want the guitars eventually. We'll see. We'll see. My goal is to eventually limit my collection to just a couple of guitars and try and limit them to what I consider the cream of the crop. Instead of having like, 20 guitars or whatever it is, just limit it to three or four, but make sure they're the best of the ones that I have. Fat Philosopher says, look back at the album covers of the Scorpions, Love Drive or Animal Magnetism. No way that would fly in today's climate. Absolutely, absolutely, and all the nuances that if you look at even the titles on a lot of the a lot of them, a big portion of the ZZ Top songs that they had, Tush and Legs and Pearl Necklace and what was a couple of the other ones that they had, and even the lyrics within the songs, um, pretty pretty iffy if we had to look at that today and put something like that out today. If you look at the cover of the greatest hits package, the ZZ Top greatest hits package, the one I have on CD, if you look at the cover on that, it's written ZZ Top greatest hits. There's the members of the band, and there's a girl, very well endowed girl, sitting on the cover as well. And the way the title is written ZZ Top Greatest Hits, and there's a light that's slightly covering the H in the hits, and the H looks like a T. And I know they changed that after a while, but I have the version that has that cover. And if you look it up on the internet, ZZ Top Greatest Hits, look at the album cover and you'll notice that. I don't think that was an accident. I think that was done on purpose. That definitely wouldn't fly today, right? So Elmwood already grew a beard, so he's ready to go. Awesome, awesome. So I guess you throw on a pair of dark sunglasses and some and maybe a dusty hat, and you're ready to go. Randy says Flamma has a new preamp pedal. I'm going to combine it with my Boss MS3 to make a flyboard. I haven't tried the preamp pedal from Flamma. That's an interesting thing to do if in case you have if you don't want to necessarily lug an amp, a preamp pedal is a good way of doing it. So that info came from Billy himself in an interview with Variety and Eddie Trunk. Interesting. Okay, so the facts are correct then. Our sources are good. Great. Oh man. Yeah, I know. They started playing in 1969, Paul. That's right. Oldest band with the same members. 52 years. I know. It's crazy. I was born in 1969. That's beyond the Rolling Stones, and even the Rolling Stones had member changes, right? Um, I don't know if any other band that's lasted this long without any member changes. Gibson got Hammett to join them so they can do another special edition run of the Greenie. Yes, I know. Yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk about a little bit today. And this is again, see, they're not dumb. The people at Gibson are strategizing ways to jack up the prices and put out guitars that are supposed to be like really really rare. So Kurt Hammett of Metallica bought the Greenie. The Greenie is the guitar that's been played by quite a few different well-known artists. I'm not going to go into the whole history spiel, but if you guys are not aware, just type in Greenie Les Paul and there's going to be a whole bunch of information on it. It's a very iconic guitar. And anyways, um, Hammett bought that guitar. He paid a lot of money for it, but it's in his possession now. That guitar has been around for quite a while. It's had its neck broken twice, but it has a lot of history. Um, So now what's happening is that he joined Gibson. I guess Gibson is now endorsing him because he does have this iconic guitar. So it would definitely make sense for them to have him as an endorsee because he has probably one of the most famous Gibson Les Pauls that's out there right now. And so now there are definitely, I have a feeling what we're going to see now is there's going to be a limited run of these greeny replicas that are going to cost a fortune, and they're going to do it again. You know, they're just going to, just like they did a limited run of Billy Gibbons, Pearly Gates, Les Paul, and all that kind of stuff. So they're just going to continue to do that. But apparently, Kurt, he's going to have a full run. Apparently, they're going to do a full run. It's going to be a line dedicated to him. So it's not just going to be that guitar, from what I understand. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. Rico says it's ironic when you don't have many guitars, you want more, and when you have a bunch, you only really want one or two. I mean, for me, Rico, it's always been the goal to sort of, I don't want to be a hoarder and I don't want to end up with a lot of guitars. Here I am saying that, and behind me, there's like probably 10 or 12 guitars. But an actual fact is that I like to keep guitars and I like to evaluate them so that I know which ones I enjoy the most. So right now, for example, like this is relatively new. I'm liking this guitar. So when I play this guitar, I'm playing it and I'm evaluating it constantly with all the other guitars that I have. And if this guitar kicks another one out, that's fine by me. That's okay. But as another one comes in, I do the same type of evaluation. Unfortunately, I can't evaluate quickly enough, and I end up having more guitars than I need. But I already know which ones are kind of on the chopping block, which ones are going to go if the opportunity comes up. I'm not always sure what's going to come in, but I kind of know which ones are kind of in line to go. And ultimately, the ones that have stayed over the years are the ones that are probably going to end up staying, right? Because I've enjoyed them so much and I haven't had a reason to get rid of them. So that's the idea. Believe me or not, that's the idea. Uh, have you checked the new Kramer guitars? Night Swan guitar from Def Leppard guy and some new custom Berettas are on their website. Yeah, I've seen some of those guitars. I don't like the location of the switch. I think a lot of them have the switch up here. I've seen those. I'm not crazy about that. But I'm glad to see that they're still kind of trying to make the Gibson. Gibson is still trying to keep the Kramer line going, and hopefully eventually they'll put out a couple of guitars that I like, and maybe I'll pick up one. Yeah, I think ESP when I think Metallica as well, because he's been using them for a long time as well. Anything still flies today. Look at Steel Panther, and what about all the girls shaking it on TikTok? Yeah, but that's different. I mean, this might not be the right thing to say, but it's kind of like it's okay if a girl wants to shake it, but it's not okay if a guy uh, is using a girl shaking it for his purposes. You know what I mean? Whatever. I mean, I don't want to get into that discussion because I don't. I'm not an expert at what's right or wrong in those things, but I know that there's a very delicate nuance, and many times when you get into those discussions, you just end up being wrong. So it's better not to say anything sometimes. Um, so Paul says the Flamma Pre is the world's cheapest modeler. I would have to try the Pre. I haven't seen much on it yet, and I haven't tried it, so I can't really comment. But yeah, it could be an interesting piece of gear to have. Larry says Van Halen's publishing company is Yes Up music turned that world around, those silly guys. Okay, Rico says, I just traded away my Night Song for an LP tribute. The fit finish was amazing. I didn't like the middle humbucker setup was in a way of my picking, and that is something I avoid as well. I don't really like guitars that have a middle pickup, especially if they have two humbuckers. If it's a single coil, it's okay. Like in a Strat, it's okay. But if they have two humbuckers and a middle pickup, I don't really like that. If they have two humbuckers and a middle humbucker, that's even worse. So those are sort of things that I avoid in general. If you guys haven't noticed, I have a little addition in my collection. Well, a little addition, an amp I'm evaluating. This little amp down there, that's a Princeton Reverb 68 with a Celestion 1030 speaker in it. I actually wanted to reevaluate the Princetons because I've played one in the past, haven't played one extensively. I wanted to bring one in to see how it stacked up with some of the other amps that I have, especially for clean. So I have a Supersonic 22. I have a Jared James Nichols combo amp as well. Uh, they're not necessarily the same, but I wanted to see how the Princeton stacks up in terms of the clean and the overall tone, especially since the Princeton has a 10-inch speaker. I always thought that there would not necessarily be enough bottom end with a 10-inch speaker, but the 68 has plenty of bottom end, I have to admit. Um, but for me, I never actually purchased a Princeton because this is actually something that I borrowed and it's going to be going back, but I never actually purchased a Princeton because for me, a guitar has to be able to do a good clean, but has to also be able to do the dirt thing well. And the Princeton is great in terms of cleans. It doesn't have a lot of headroom. So if you're trying to play it with a band, it's probably not the best option if you're playing with a loud band, but it's great for home use. And it does take pedals pretty well because it doesn't have an effects loop. And it's unfortunate that they didn't make a. I really don't know why Fender didn't actually make another version of the Princeton, like a new version, um, with some easy mods. That they like. I would definitely say, take the Princeton, put in a 12-inch speaker that they've done before. They have versions of the Princeton available with a 12-inch, which I think is a good option because the speaker makes a huge difference in the overall tonality of that type of amplifier. I don't know why they never put in an effects loop because that amp does not have an effects loop. And of course, it doesn't have a mid control. Um, and that's something that I think is lacking in that guitar, in that amplifier. I mean, if you look back in history, Mesa took the foundations of what the Princeton was and made the Mesa Mark One or the first Mesa Boogie. What they did is exactly that. They took it, they made it louder, they made it beefier, they put in the proper controls, the effects loop, later on even added an EQ. And that was, I think that was born from the Princeton, but the problem with the Mesa Mark One was that it wasn't as good in terms of the clean, and it was a little bit had a very immediate attack, and it had in some cases was brittle sounding, and way too heavy. So if there's anybody out there that is building these Princeton type amplifiers, and I'm sure there's plenty of other boutique manufacturers that are making these amps, they've probably done some of these modifications, uh, but they're very expensive, right? So now you're looking at probably $2,000 to $3,000 for an amp like that. The Princeton right now is about 1,400 bucks Canadian, which I feel is pretty expensive for such a small amplifier and for such a simple amplifier without too many options in it. But I gotta say, it sounds really nice. It does sound nice. It definitely has a much fuller sound than my Jared James Nichols Black Star, and I'm not surprised. Um, but as far as the headroom, as I said, not that flexible. Clean is great. Drive, you can get some decent drive if you play around with it, but it tends to flub out a little bit. And I guess that has to do with the speaker as well. So Paul says that the Flamma Pre is a disappointment. The clean amps are not convincing, and the dirt amps are about as good as as a cheap budget analog overdrive. Yeah, you know what? I mean, it's hard to get a good, convincing pre. No matter how you build it, how well you build it, it's always going to be a disappointment when you put it against a real amplifier or something like that. So it's always going to be a compromise, you know. But if you're going to do something like that and get the Flamma pre, I don't know, maybe you're better off just going with a multi effects unit, something like that, you know. Richard the third said the new Squire Contemporary has a single coil setup that's more humbucker placement. Swift. I'm not sure I follow what you're trying to say there, Richard. They put the middle pickup at the bottom. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, yes, yes. I remember. I remember now, Richard. Yeah. They moved the location of the pickup. Yes. To make it more like a humbucker. Yeah, I find that odd. I'm not really a big fan of what they did there. I remember seeing that. Yeah. Not a big fan of that. I find that's a little bit weird. And then it also limits what you can do in terms of modifications down the road. You got to be pretty convinced that's the way to go if you're going to be using that type of setup. I'd love to have Gibson do something with Steenberger and Tobias, a pair of iconic bass brands that Gibson has basically abandoned. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Gibson brings back um, Steenberger. I think the time could be right for them to do that. And maybe Tobias too, who knows? I don't know. I mean, they seem to be, Gibson seems to be ready to kind of maximize any kind of potential they have to make money. So why wouldn't they bring back a brand like that? You know, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. It's going to be interesting to see that. There's also I don't know if I last week I think I was talking about the build I was putting together for the Telecaster, and here I was working on it this week, so I might as well just show you an update. You're going to see this on the video that I put out as well. So this is the body that I painted myself. This is a pretty heavy body. This body's got weight to it. It's not like the purple Telecaster that I made out of reclaimed 100-year-old pine. This is a nice heavy body. Uh, I know Bonamassa calls one of his um, Telecaster the bludgeon. This feels like that too. This is going to be a heavy guitar. But I basically put the guitar together and it's ready to go. I'm just waiting for the neck to arrive. And you'll see me showing this when I'm shielding. This is the body that I used for the shielding video. So basically went with the black um, pickguard, standard controls on this guitar, nothing crazy. The pickups in here are a pair of Porter pickups. These are the Gatekeepers, which are kind of their budget pickups. I wanted to try these out and see how they would sound, so I thought I'd put them in this build. And I got a really nice bridge with 5 independent saddles. Decided to go the 5 saddle route because I wanted this to be kind of an homage um, to the Keith Richards Telecaster, and I feel that having 5 independent saddles is always the best in terms of being able to intonate your guitar. And yeah, I went with a very thin nitro finish on this guitar, so you can still see the grain, and you can still, there's a little bit of texture to it as well. So I didn't go thick on the clear coat, so it's a relatively thin paint job, and that's the way I wanted it because I want it to age gracefully on its own. And I can't wait for the neck to arrive. I've ordered it. I don't think it's actually shipped yet, but it's a maple neck that I'm putting on that guitar. I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. I wish it was a little bit less heavy. I wish the body was not as heavy, but hopefully that weight will also give it some balls, and we'll see. We'll see once it's put together. It's gonna happen soon. Seth, I'll let you know about the neck, man. It all depends what it's like when I get it. It's a brand new neck, so we'll see. But I'll definitely let you know. So guys, are there any other questions? We've been on now for about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm gonna probably wrap it up. I gotta continue editing the videos and get some new content out there for you guys as well. Shoot some video of other things that I have lined up as well. Hey Darwin, nice to see you, buddy. Hey Larry, thanks, buddy. Larry says I'm a very wise man. Thank you, man. And guys, if I missed your comments earlier on today, just please ask them again. Hobo Bob, I didn't say hi to you, buddy. Nice to see you. I'm just scrolling back on the messages because I think I missed a whole bunch of people that came in earlier. I could guarantee you that the dealers don't like Gibson being able to sell stuff directly online. I know that for a fact. It's kind of a kick in the nuts because they're forced to buy a lot of merchandise, and then Gibson goes straight to their customers. And basically, what ends up happening at that point is that the dealers basically become a showroom. People will go and try the guitars there and possibly not buy the guitars there unless they can offer more value by giving them better deals in the store or better customer support or whatever. Sometimes if they can get a better deal direct, they'll go direct. There's not a whole lot of loyalty left these days when it comes to customers. A lot of them are just looking for the best prices, especially since the pricing on these guitars are so high to begin with. If you can save 10%, you'll save 10%. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation, I think. Yeah, Fat Philosopher, I agree, man. The way Fender has handled Jackson, Charvel, Gretsch, the way Gibson has handled Kramer has been a disaster. Yep. They haven't been giving them as much love, but I think they're just testing the waters at this point to see whether or not it's worthwhile to invest more money. If the sales are there, trust me, they'll give them more love. But I think they're primarily focusing on the Gibson brand and trying to get the tarnish off the name and make it shine again. Gibson also yanked Mesa from the small dealers with a 40,000 buy-in required. Yeah, this is the thing that Gibson has been doing with their inventory. It's quite a big buy-in. And if they're forcing the same situation with Mesa, yeah, you're probably going to see less and less Mesa Boogie amps at the small mom and pop shops that can't afford to the dish out that 40 grand. BC Rich says Steenberger would have to come back with the trans trem for anyone to really care, and graphite bodies. And who knows? They might just do a new version of this stuff, and maybe give it a modern look. There's always aces up the sleeve that we're not aware of, that they possibly could have already be working on. Paul says the direct sales keep Gibson away in our radar and encourage guys to go to the shop and play any Gibson and might uh, go to the shop and play any Gibson and might come home with one. Rich says, will you ever put out a video with the dog if she's awake? Uh, yeah, I could do that, but honestly, she's not really a fan of loud noises. So whenever I do play pretty loud, like right now I'm playing through my multi effects, so she doesn't hear a thing. It's all going through my headphones. But when I'm playing the amps in the room, she'll get up and leave. I wonder how much earring damage that poor dog has endured over the years. They're waiting to see if the current resurgent of interest in the 80s style guitars is just a fad or more long term. But they can always just make some minor modifications to those guitars to give them more of a modern feel. I mean, if you look at what Charvel's been doing, if you notice, they're kind of putting out guitars now with less and less Floyds on them. They've gone with the simplified bridges, which I think most people like now anyways. So they've kind of gotten rid of or put out less models with the Floyds on them, trying to give them a more subdued look. I mean, if you look at Ibanez, for example, you looked at the early Ibanez guitars, the earlier Ibanez guitars, they all had really fancy kind of tacky inlays, the thunderbolts and stuff like that. And gradually they've been giving them a more modern look, simplifying them, bringing them up to date. And I think it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just a question of seeing whether or not there is any interest to begin with, and then they can make them better. And of course, they're going to be listening to what the customers are saying about their guitars and stuff like that, so they can make these tweaks as well. Larry says, when I play, people get up and leave. I get requests when I play. They basically request that I stop playing. Should bring back all the 80s, early 90s weird gear, Rockman, ADA, Art, Digitech. Yeah, man. Yeah, they should. They should make brand new versions of all that stuff. That would be cool. I've had most of those. I remember those very well. Look, things are always changing. The fad with music is changing as well. And right now we're stuck in this period, but something new is going to come when we least expect it and kick our ass. And then all of a sudden, it's going to just jumpstart another sonic revolution, and who knows what it's going to be. If maybe the guitar will be back in music, in popular music, because it's kind of not there right now. We'll see. We'll see. All right, guys. If there are no other questions, I'm gonna start wrapping it up. If there are a few more questions, feel free to ask them now or forever. Hold your peace, or maybe not forever, but until next Sunday, where you can ask you the questions again. If you have any questions about this guitar, you want me to answer very quickly, feel free to ask. Obviously, this video, the review video on this guitar, is on my channel. So if you haven't seen that, I probably answer a lot of those questions in that video. So if you don't get an opportunity to ask the questions here, you can always go and check out that video as well, and you probably will be able to get the answers that you're looking for there. One of the comments here says John Mayer's new album is a 1986 time machine. So John is he's having a little flashback period with his new album. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of the new generation hasn't really heard that type of music all that much. So why not try and bring some of that back and make it interesting for them? That's cool. I'm okay with that. Fat Philosopher says, my question about reverb tax fees was ignored. Sorry, Fat Philosopher, what was that question? If you don't mind asking that again. Reverb tax. Just copy and paste it over again if you don't mind, Fat Philosopher. I'll try and answer it. The Rockman gear is valuable if it still works, but it wasn't really durable. Hey Herman, nice to see you, buddy. The Rockman stuff, I remember they had a little like Walkman style, and that's aging me now. You guys probably don't even know what the Walkmans are, but they had a little device, was a Rockman. It was about this big that you can actually wear on your belt clip and wear with headphones and plug your guitar in, and it had a bunch of effects on it that you can actually just jam away on your guitar. This was way before its time. It was a neat little device. Why does Reverb charge sales tax to the seller and not the buyer? Good question. I think possibly it just has to do with logistics, because to be able to charge sales tax, you need to really know where the person lives. And maybe because the seller has all their information entered into Reverb, they can identify the location of residence and they know how much to charge, whereas a buyer might be a little bit harder to pin down. I'm not really sure. I can't really answer that, but maybe other people might be able to answer that. I don't even have a Reverb account, so I couldn't really say. I don't really know all the ins and outs about it. But I'm sure you can contact Reverb and they probably will answer that question. So Seth, I'm running standard size strings. They're 9s. Yeah, I know. I thought about that, but it's really not a light difference in terms of intonation. It's quite a bit. And lighter gauge strings, like even if I would go to 7s, would probably not cure the issue, unfortunately. But I did consider doing that. I know that's one of the ways we can sometimes get around those intonation issues, but unfortunately, it's not. Ça marche pas, like they say in France. It doesn't work. Here, let me just show you what I mean, if you don't mind me grabbing another guitar here. I don't know if I can even make you hear. Sorry guys, I know I'm causing a lot of hum here. I don't know if it's even tuned. Let's see if this guitar's tuned. so the E is pretty much tuned. The other strings might not be tuned because I haven't played it recently. But if I give you the example on the E, so the E is tuned. It's slightly sharp, but if you look at, I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but take my word for it, the saddle on the E is all the way down, all the way back. I can't go any further. So I'm thinking, like, to make this really work properly, I would probably have to push back the saddles a good quarter of an inch. Which is a shame, because at this point I was calling the guitar done. And probably most of you probably wouldn't notice it when you're playing it, but I'll notice it. Especially like if I go to the A, it's still off and it bothers me. So anyways, you get the idea, guys. So it's all doable. It'll be another project. Maybe I'll showcase how I fix this for you guys on my segment of my messy workbench. Maybe not. I'm not really sure. But it'll get fixed, and I'll be much more happy with it. And if it doesn't come out the way I want it to come out, and maybe it messes up the finish on the guitar, I'll just paint it again. It's, I've done crazier things. Yeah, Larry, I know you didn't run out of space because your posts were in the right place. I'm gonna contact the guys over at Guitar Kit World, and I'll let them know about this issue. They're probably not aware of it, and hopefully they'll fix it. Hopefully they'll get their supplier to fix it. So that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Addicted to Gear. Hopefully I've answered a lot of your questions today, and you've gotten your guitar fix for at least another week. Yeah, Fat Philosopher. So Larry might have missed it, but what we were saying earlier is that the guitar was possibly drilled with the posts, the holes for the posts located in the wrong place, slightly too forward. Unfortunately, there's no real way of testing it unless you do a dry fit of the entire guitar before painting it, which maybe I should have done, but I don't know if I would have caught it at that point. Possibly I would have. Maybe next time I will. At least that way, if you run into issues like this, then you can adjust. Or perhaps what they can do is sell the guitars without the post holes drilled, so you can drill them yourself. That way, if it doesn't work, well, it's your fault. But a lot of people don't like to do that and drill their own stuff, so whatever. All right, guys, so that's it for this Sunday. Thank you again for joining me for another hour or so of chit chat. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy Sunday. I hope everybody stays safe and enjoys playing their instruments for another week. Please stay tuned on my channel because I will post a video either today or tomorrow from my messy workbench, as well as some other videos that I'm working on as well. And subscribe, give me the thumbs up if you guys like the content. It encourages me to keep it going, and we'll chit chat soon. So take care, guys. Be safe, be well, and see you next Sunday.